Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to Stephen Reep's Adventure of Truth podcast. I am your host, Stephen Reep, and today we're going to talk about the spark that started it all. A lot of people have asked me why I wrote my book, so let's get in it and let's start an adventure. All right. So, probably the most common question I get is, why did you decide to write the book? Now, that can be seen as two different ways. One, why did I decide to write in general? And then two, why did I decide to write the specific book, Fleeing Tiamat? So, I'll answer the first part first. Why did I decide to write? Well, I have written before. I have written more academic things. I've been published in the Christian Research Journal and for academic works. This is my first work of fiction. The reason I decided to do fiction is the same reason I decided to write before, to teach. I saw heroes like C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, George Lucas, the people that do Marvel, a lot of the Disney stories. They use stories to teach a lesson, to inspire people. And I saw that was one of the best ways we can do it as human beings. We've always done it as human beings. Look all the way back since the beginning of time. There's mythology wherever you go. Norse mythology, Greek mythology, Native American, Indian mythology. There's mythology in the beginning parts of the Bible. And it's one of the best ways we can teach. Jesus himself taught in parables, right? Stories it's innate in us to learn from stories, to teach, because we resonate with it. We put ourselves as the hero. And I always love learning. When I read, I always learn a lot, and I see myself as someone that could do this, someone that could teach this way. So that's why I decided to write the book in general. The second way I could answer that question is, why did I decide to write Fleeing Tiamat in general? Well, there was one spark that started it all. I always wanted to write. I always had ideas of stories and ideas, but with this book specifically, there was one line from a Jordan Peterson lecture that started it all. I actually have it included in the preface of the book. So I'll read the quote. So it was in Jordan Peterson's 18th lecture in a biblical series called Jacob's Ladder. And he says, if you put someone in a place that's deprived from all sensory perspective, normal people will hallucinate quite quickly. So it seems what happens is that if you dampen down the sensory input, then you start to become aware of the background processes of your mind. I thought that was a pretty interesting quote. That if you go out into the wilderness, if you go out on a hike, a lot of people that do silent retreats see this and avoid technology, they see this very quickly. I've seen this doing the Appalachian Trail. Is you have intense dreams, you have religious experiences. When you're out in nature, you feel God more, and that's kind of what got me thinking. That's why more primitive cultures have always, we always hear in history how they have all these religious experiences, and today with our phones in our face all the time, we see that as so weird and so bizarre. But it's because we're overstimulated. So I thought about this, and I thought about this a lot. And I said, are we getting too overstimulated? Could you get so overstimulated that you don't feel God? Could there be a place like that? And that's where the seeds of Tiamat started. I started thinking up a place, a dystopia, where we were so overstimulated that we lost God. We lost our connection with nature, our natural call to God. I started building this world of Tiamat, and I used all the extremities of today. I exaggerated, I magnified today's culture, all the flaws of it, and politics and cultural ideas, and especially with technology, I magnified that, and that's what any good dystopia is. It's a magnification of today's culture. And that's really where I saw we could lose God. We could be so overstimulated. We could give up truth so much and have this idea that truth isn't real, and this modern idea, this you do you idea, and be so far removed that we could lose God. But then my Christian beliefs came in, and I remembered God is the God of resurrection, and that even in the most controlled, darkest situation, that God would resurrect. I wrote the story about someone in that culture, someone in that dystopia that leaves it, that flees it, and he is opened up to all these experiences. He's connected to what's called the collective unconscious in Carl Jung's philosophy and his psychology, that the Christians have called the laws of nature that are written on our hearts, right? So I kind of talked about that a little bit in the last video about the cover with the dragon, how every culture's had the dragon, that there's this collective consciousness, we know what's right and wrong. We know that means happy. We know that means sad. We know the dragon means chaos. We all came up with the bow and arrow. We have these ideas that are imprinted in our mind and that are really unescapable. We see so many morals are universal. We see lying is always bad. Being a coward is always bad. We see marriage is always a priority. In every culture, there's marriage. There's different types of marriage, like polygamy and monogamy, but there's always marriage. Every culture has art. Every culture has music. Every culture has religion. And yes, every culture has God. God resurrects, yes, in many different ways, but oddly very close. Oddly very close are moral laws, very similar, and everyone in the world has a calling for God. And that resurrects. That will always be a case. You can try to get rid of God. We've never found a culture without God. When Westerners found the Aborigines, they had God. Everyone had God. Yes, communist societies have tried to get rid of God. And what happened? He resurrected. Resurrection happens. God is the God of resurrection, and that is essentially what this book is about. Yes, we can distract ourselves from him from a time being, but as soon as you're removed from it, as Jordan Peterson said, you will start to have these experiences. So that was the spark that started this book. And I kind of just went with it, and it wrote itself. I made an outline. I decided, I prayed with it. I decided I was going to fill it out, and I really believe that the Spirit led me to come up with a lot of the things that are in this book. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot more to it. We're going to go through chapter by chapter and talk about all those things. It's cool. I'm hearing a lot of people picking them up. I have an interview soon coming out next week with St. Mark's Church and the priest there, Father Groff. He read the book and he picked up on a lot of the stuff I wasn't sure people were going to pick up on, so it's really cool to see that. So, I'll see you next time, guys. My name's Stephen Reep, reminding you to be the hero of your own adventure.